tell us about the studio. Tell us about your involvement with them, about your career, and then about your attraction to this particular movie.
Well, let's start with the movie first. I have 3 adopted children from China. I became aware of the dangers that go on with children around the world and through that process. Then I became aware of Tim Ballard, and coincidentally, then my friend Eduardo Verostegui brought me this script because many of the actors that they had offered it to didn't want to get involved in this particular project. I read the script. I loved the movie Taken, and I thought this is like Taken, but with a much bigger heart. Then Tim Ballard came to the meeting. He had seen 2 films that I did. One was called The Count of Monte Cristo, and then the other one was The Passion of the Christ, and he felt that I'd be the right guy to play him. Angel Studios, I had no connection to them until a few months ago when they wanted to do this movie, and their idea was to sell 2 million tickets for these 2 million trafficked children.
So why is it that a number of actors, why in your estimation did a number of actors turn down the opportunity to play the role? What and why did you decide to forego that risk and to climb aboard?
I foregoed the risk because when you have 3 children that you loved and you'd give your life for, it kind of connects into Tim Ballard, and Tim did this for this little girl and the children that he saves. It's something is a greater purpose that even your career, like I went through this with Mel Gibson when we did The Passion, that my career was the last thing I thought of. What I thought about was the God I love. And I put this, and how I look at it is that this God that I love, he loves me and he deserved to be loved back. And so I would be nothing without him. He gave me my purpose in this life. So the Tim Ballard, I was very fortunate that he had seen those films. And when I looked at, and I think Tim made this comparison, Schindler's List was a very powerful weapon, but it came 50 years too late. This film is now. This is exposing it now during that time. And I believe that is probably why it's easier to get an actor to do a movie 50 years later. There's no controversy. It's over. But the individuals, imagine if Rwanda, if that story had been made, that movie had been made during that time, or that they could see it. You have to look at these situations and understand that good people sit back and do nothing and allow this evil to occur. There's got to be people that stand up in the time that it occurs. And that's what drew me to the whole story in the first place.
And how do you feel about the movie? Now you've seen the movie in its entirety. It's about to be released. It's a fully fledged, high quality production. I was particularly impressed by the cinematography. It's also extraordinarily well edited. The acting, I don't want to flatter you, but the acting is extremely high quality. It's a very realistic movie. How do you feel about your involvement now that everything is done? And how do you feel about what would you say, the production capacity of Angel Studios, which is a relative newcomer on the mass entertainment block?
When I was sitting next to Tim Ballard and he leaned over and he started to weep heavily, I knew I did my job.
So do you want to run us briefly through, I don't want to give away the entire plot because that would obviously be pointless, but do you want to just run us briefly through, Jim, the plot of the movie, and then I'll turn to Tim and fill in some of the background details of his life.
So I play Tim Ballard. He's Homeland Security. He sets up these sting operations to take down these very, very bad men to save trafficked children. In one particular case, one of the traffickers that he takes down, Ernst Lipachinski, he rescues this boy, and the little boy turns to him and says, "Will you save my sister?" And Tim goes back, gets the direction from above and from his wife, and goes back and he sells everything to find this little girl.
So what I liked about the script, so I've noticed that one of the most effective ways of communicating complex ideas effectively is to particularize the problem. And so what happens in this movie is that the broad problem of slavery and human trafficking, and the somewhat narrower problem of sexual trafficking of children is zeroed, is what focused on a particular case. And so that gives the movie a very powerful narrative underpinning, right? Because when a problem is particularized and you can see how it affects actual specific people's lives, it becomes much more realistic and much more palpable. And I thought the movie did a good job of that.